So today we are going to talk everything mix minus. So I'm beginning a bunch of questions in the comments about what is a mix minus? Will this work for my situation? How have you set up your mix minus? So let's do a video about it. Let's talk about it. Now, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Ryan Summerfield, and thank you for all those who have subscribed and been liking the videos. It has been a huge help. We're almost at 1,000 now, which is crazy. But welcome back, and we are going to dive deep into all things mix minus. So what is mix minus? Now, it's literally in the name. It is a mix minus something. So in a very basic term, it'll be a mix minus a contributor. Let's talk about a very basic use case scenario. So you're doing an event and you're live switching on a Vision Mixer of any sort, and you want to bring in someone, for example, on Zoom. So on Zoom, you have a laptop set up there and you want to bring them in. You want to be able to hear them and you want them to be able to hear yourself. So in that situation, we have myself on my camera and my microphone, and we have them on their camera. So that's coming in on a laptop. We have audio out, but we also need to send audio in. So on the audio in, we want to send them everything but themselves. Because what we don't want to happen is that them hear themselves through our system and then back out again, hear it all delayed, and it's going to be trippy for them to listen to. But anyway, we don't want that. We just want them to hear the mix or whatever we want them to hear. So that could just be my microphone. That could be not the video playbacks. That could be not the background music, whatever that is. So let's talk into a very cheap and basic way of setting this up. So I just did a quick Google and found one of the cheapest options in terms of an analog sound desk for this to work. So this is a Behringer Xenix 802. Again, just the first one that popped up, which met the requirements for what we need. Because all we need is we need to have a certain amount of inputs. We need at least one auxiliary, or in this case, an effects send, and a main output. So we need two outputs from this device, at least, for this to work. One output is going to go to them, the remote guests, and the other output is going to go to your mixer, to the recorder, to the outside world. So in this scenario, we have, say, this microphone here coming into channel 1, and this is our level for the first channel, and we have this effects bus. They're going to come in on channel 2. This is going to be their line, and we have their main level going to the main mix. So the main mix, so these two main outputs is going to go into your Vision switcher, recorder, whatever you're doing. So in my example, I've got a A10 Mini Extreme. So I would run this from the output, main output, into my A10 Mini Extreme using a cable from TRS to headphone jack. I would also recommend looking at hum eliminators as well. So I have had some issues with hum between different, or a bit of buzzing going on between things. So something to look into. I've started adding a few hum eliminators to some of the problem devices in my rack, but that's another story. And the effects send. So the effects send would typically be used to go out of the switcher into an effects rack. So say a reverb unit or something, and then we want to bring that back in. We're not using that. We just want to have another output. So we're just using just the effects send, or it would be called an auxiliary send. Some consoles have multiple auxiliaries. This one's just going to have one. So in this situation, I want to send my microphone, just me, to the effects send, which will be them. And we don't want to send anything to them on their listen. So we don't want to send to the effects send or the auxiliary themselves, only everything else or anything else that we want them to hear. So we only just want them, my microphone and say video playback. So we send them everything that they want there, but we want to send their audio to the main mix left and right. So that's a super simple way of doing that using a very cheap, this is a sub $100 mixer here, which you could use for your event. But we also want to see what a larger mixer will look like. So let's look into that now. So in my setup, by the way, if you want to check out a video about that, I've got a video up here which shows off my new portable live stream box, which is a bit fun. I went and put it all together, ready for portable live stream kits, because I got just sick of having to build it every time. But anyway, so what I've chosen was the Behringer Air XR16. So it is actually a pretty awesome console for its price. It cost me around $600 Australian to buy, and it's a 16 input and 4 auxiliary and master output switcher. Sorry, not switcher, console. And here is the graphical user interface for it, because it doesn't actually have any physical faders. It is just a box, and it has got everything can be controlled through here. So I'll bring this full screen so you can check it out a little bit easier. So very basically, I've got my two microphones. So this is my microphone here, which you can see bouncing up and down, and a lav mic, just in case I'm using a lapel. I've got two guests coming in. I've set them as stereo for this example. And I've got an Apple TV, this computer, Playout B for video playback, and Ultra Studio for my animations and lower thirds. And I've also set the headphone out on the ATEM going into these channels, just so I can check to make sure levels are working, and I can monitor them and see if the audio is clean, there's no buzzers, and nothing going on. I've got an aux here, which is playing my Sting audio, and I've got these 4 effects buses, which I'm actually using basically just as buses to be able to send my audio through and also add delay in terms of lip sync. I'll go into a little bit of that a bit later on. Down the side here, we have our main output, and which is what's happening down here. And these are our 4 physical auxes. So there's 4 XLRs in the back of this thing, which will output to whatever we set here. So I've got my speakers, which is my speakers in my studio, unless I'm doing a live stream, which I will replace these with headphones, so I don't hear myself, so we don't have any feedback going on. And these are the 2 guests lines going into each of those computers. So in this example, we would have 2 machines going on. So say we have 2 different calls. We have a bunch of different people on Zoom A and Zoom B. We can have separate mixers go into each of them. If you've just got 2 people coming in on the one Zoom call, for example, you can only need to have one output. But in this example, we're going to run 2 just so you can, and this can be scaled infinitely. You can have 100 different calls going on so long as your console can actually handle that amount of I/O. Yeah, so let's talk about how we are doing a mix minus. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So right now, I have got, bring this full screen again. I've got my microphone going to my speakers. It is also going to my 2 guests, and it's going to my Vox send. Now, if I look at guest number 1, guest number 1 is going to my speakers so I can hear them. It is not going to guest number 1 because we don't want them to hear themselves, and it's going to guest number 2. So right now, guest number 1 is being heard by myself. It is being heard by guest number 2. And because I'm sending it to a VEX bus, it is going to the world. So going from guest number 1 out to the world, to myself, and to the other guests. So if we look down here at guest number 1, down here we can see that they're getting a full mix, but not themselves. This is everything that they're hearing. And the same thing guest number 2. Guest number 2 is getting my mic. It is getting guest number 1. It's getting a mix. And it is not getting guest number 2. So this is exactly what's happening with the mix minus here. So you notice that the levels are a bit lower here. So this is a prime example. We can actually control what guest number, or what anyone's hearing. So I can, for example, in my ears, I can have everything set up at show level, so I can hear what levels are happening for everyone. Make sure that the music's not too loud or the video's not too loud. But for the guests, for example, they may be like, oh, I don't really want to hear the music, or I don't want to hear the video. So I can bring down their levels so that they're only hearing the music at a lower level, but they're still hearing myself and the other guests nice and loud. Now, there's a few other things we can do which will help this as well. So up here, we've got our pre-fader and post-fader. So I'll quickly explain what that means. So pre-fader means that when you're sending to an aux, it will happen pre-fade to whatever's happening on the main bus. So I'll explain that a little bit more. So on our main bus, we have our main levels, and this is our main layer. When I adjust the levels here, what's happening here is that when I bring this down, for example, this is going to bring down to the master bus, and it's also going to bring down for any of these auxes that are set to post fader. So I'll give you a practical example here now. So right now, I've got my microphone going post fader to both my ears, going to the guests, but it is going pre-fader to my Vox bus, which is going to you, going to the record right now. So if I was to bring down, again, on my main left, right, if I was to bring down my audio, as you can see, as I'm talking, the level is going down. So now you can see that to these auxes, they are hearing nothing, but you are still hearing me because your send is sending pre-fader. So it is not affected by the main bus fader. If I bring that back up again, now everyone is hearing me. So this is pretty handy because that will mean, for example, so right now my video playback is down. So what I do is I set up automation so that when I roll a video, my fader will fade in over a second. So I'll do a nice little fade in, and it'll unmute first and then fade in. So that will mean that both you are hearing that fade in, and everyone else is also hearing that. So if I look at the video playback going to all these auxes, these are all post fader. So everyone will hear the video fade in and it'll hear it fade out. So if we fade out a video before it finishes, everyone will hear that gone, even though the video is still playing and the audio is still coming through. So that is a pretty handy use case. Another great use case is that if we want to have a conversation while a video is playing, we can actually mute these buses which are going to the world so that we can communicate to each other, but the world won't hear that. So prime example is that I'll have a 10-minute countdown whenever I'm doing a live stream. And I don't want to have to be sitting there twiddling my thumbs and being silent before we go live. And if I've got a guest there, I want to be able to chat with them still and just, make some last minute changes or do any quick chats before we go live. So what we can do there is I can go into my vocal bus, well, actually all these buses, and I can mute that going to the world. But my playbacks are still going out. So the playbacks are going to the world, but these are muted. I'm not going to mute my one because you won't hear me then. So, and I've got some buttons set up on my companion deck so that I can see that, yes, my vocals is live. So I can see that I've got a red tally on my vocals, but my guests, for example, are green. So I can see that, yes, I've got my guests are muted and they are clear to the world. So I have a visual indication saying that, cool, they can talk, but it's not going to go to the world. Another great use case is that, so say I've got a guest sitting there ready to go, and if I didn't have this, I wouldn't be able to hear them until I brought them live and then everything was brought up. So for example, they could be waiting and then they have to go for whatever reason, or they want to get a hold of me. I can still have them open in my ears and I can hear them say, hey, I'll be back in 5 minutes, whatever's happening. I can hear that, but you won't hear that. So that is a awesome way of doing that too. So a couple of handy tips there. Hope that helps you. But yeah, that's basically the extent of a mix minus. Hopefully that's cleared it up a little bit. So going back into it again. So right now, guest one, which is on this aux, is not hearing themselves, but they are hearing a mix that I want to send them. Yeah, and this scales infinitely. So we showed you at the beginning, we showed you on a very basic $100 mixer, just a little analog thing, just with the basic aux, and this can scale up as large as you physically can, depending on the console you've got. I picked this one because for my price range and for my requirements, it had just the right amount of channels. I mean, as you can see, I've filled up all the channels here. But if I want anything bigger, to me, that's a bigger job. So I'll be using a bigger mixer, a bigger console. So yeah, for me, this was the perfect unit. There are other brands out there. There are other things out there. This just happened to be the right bang for buck for me. So I hope that helped. I've really enjoyed watching your comments coming in and making these videos. And thank you so much for all those who have subscribed. And if you haven't yet, please consider doing so. It really helps me out a lot. And we're so close to 1,000. So if you can help me go over the line, that'd be amazing. And we'll keep going from there. But thank you so much for watching. And thank you to all those who have subbed. And I will see you on the next one. Stay safe out there.